Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to make these adorable little puff stitch grannies that I used in my Love Puff pillow pattern. I'm also going to show you how to seam them together afterwards, how I do the slip stitch, and then I'm going to show you how I do the border around them. Okay, so I am going to be using a worsted weight yarn. I've got my Sewrella yarn here, and it's a hand-dyed yarn. It's 218 yards per 100 grams with my 5mm hook. For this particular pattern, it's really important to match your gauge because if you don't, your pillow panel won't fit your pillow. If you're going to be using like a typical acrylic yarn, it's usually a lot thicker than, the merino hand-dyed wools of the world. So you may want to consider going down a hook size or plan to purchase a larger pillow than the 18-inch one that the pattern calls for. Maybe a 20 by 20 inch would probably do it. So all of the gauge and everything is in the pattern, which I will have listed in the description below. And this color that I'm using here, because I know someone's going to ask, was part of the Taylor Swift collection by Sewrella. I don't know if I have I don't think I have the little card that wrapped around it. It was called You Need to Calm Down, and it was part of the Taylor Swift collection, which was a limited release. So if you missed it, you missed it. I'm sorry. But I am positive that you all have fantastic yarns in your stash. So I can't wait to see the color combos that you guys come up with. Okay, so I've got 3 little puff grannies made up here, and I'm just going to show you really quickly how to do one. And then once I have 4, we will stitch them all together. So what you're going to want to do is start with a slip knot, and I'm going to assume you know all of your basic stitches because I'm not really one of those beginner tutorial type gals. So throw your slip knot on your hook, and then we are going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We are going to slip stitch into the 4th chain from our hook, or our first one down here, our first starting chain, to create a little circle. Okay, and I'm just going to point out for anybody who maybe has got this, this is a standard granny square center. The only difference is that instead of the middle double crochet, I put a puff stitch. So that is the only difference. I had made them originally with the double crochet just as like a plain miniature granny square, and it just, didn't have enough oomph for me, so I threw in a puff stitch and fell in love. So that's the only thing we're doing differently here, okay? So I'm going to work over this tail, I'm going to hold it down, and I'm going to chain 2, which counts as your first double crochet, and then I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to puff stitch, okay? Because I'm making that center stitch, so right away we start with a puff. So yarn over, insert your hook into the center of the ring, yarn over, pull up a loop, and again, yarn over, insert your hook into the center circle, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then one more time, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. You should have 2, 4, 6, 7 loops on your hook, okay? You're gonna yarn over and pull through all of those and chain 1 to lock it down, okay? That's your puff stitch. And you're going to want to pull your puff stitch loops. When you pull up those loops, you're going to want to pull them up to the height of a double crochet. You want to do it nice and loose, because if you do it too tightly, then you're not going to be able to get your hook. It's not going to be able to pass through all those loops on the end. So now we're going to yarn over and we're going to do a regular double crochet. Okay, so that's your first granny shell. Chain 2 for your corner. Okay, and we're going to start our second granny shell. So we're going to go double crochet, yarn over and do your puff stitch. 1, 2, 3. You pull up 3 loops onto your hook, yarn over, pull through all of those, chain 1. Okay, to finish that granny cluster, you do your normal double crochet as per usual. Chain 2. Now we're going to do our third. Start with your double crochet, then work your puff stitch, and your double crochet. Chain 2, And your last one here, work your double crochet. Don't be afraid to pull those stitches back too if you start running out of room, because those puff stitches take up quite a bit. So don't be afraid to manipulate your project here. You're not going to ruin it. Pull it back, make room. Okay, last corner, so we chain 2. Now to join, if you can see here, this was our chain 1, this was our chain 2. Maybe I'll point out. That was our chain 1 and that was our chain 2. If you recall, that was our first double crochet. So this right here is actually the top of our puff stitch, and that's where we're going to join, okay, into the top of that puff stitch with a slip stitch, like so. Okay, pull your yarn through, fasten off. And as you can tell, that took literally no time at all. So even though there's a million of these required to make your little granny square panel, it goes by so fast. I think the whole pillow took me about 3 days, so it's pretty satisfying making a million little grannies. Okay, so I threaded my yarn on my needle and I'm going to flip it over, and I'm just going to go down this stitch right here, down through the center, and work my way through that puff stitch this way, like so. I use a really sharp one so that I can split the plies of the yarn so that it stays put on me. And then I'm just going to go back the way I came, splitting through the plies, okay, so that your yarn tail stays put. And then we worked over that first tail, so you just cut them both off, like so. Okay, easy peasy. So now that we have 4, I'm going to join them. Now, when I did my panel, I joined everything in the color Kingdom, which is just white, creamy white. It was from Sewrella's Little Mermaid collection. So what we're going to do, I'm going to line them up, make sure all of our fronts are facing, okay? And I want you to put your tops on the bottom row there. We're going to make a slip knot, and we're going to slip stitch these together. Okay, so I'm going to take this little sandwich. Their fronts are facing, so I have the back of our grannies facing the outsides, okay? And I'm going to go into this first loop right here of the corner, like so. Just the back loop, okay? You can see, just the back loop. And then on this one, I'm going to go into the same spot over here, into the back loop, okay? Then I'm going to place my slip knot on my yarn and pull through and secure it like so, okay? And I'm just going to slip stitch across into those back loops. So here, and when I was working my pillow, actually I'll finish that thought after. Okay, so when we get to our corner, we want to go into the first chain of the corner, not into the second, okay? Uh-oh, I missed a stitch somewhere here. What did I do? Aha, see? I put my loop in here instead of in the actual corner one. Let's try that again. See, even I'm not perfect. Okay, so make sure you get it into the 1, 2, that second chain in the corner here. And you'll know you messed up because you'll run out. Like I did. Okay, now we're off. Okay, the first chain of that corner, and then same on this side. There we go. Now she's got it. Okay, now we're going to grab our next pair over here, and we're going to do the same thing. So make sure that you get it into that second chain in the back loop. 1, 2, right? Second chain, back loop. You're going to want to pull this corner tight, okay? You want them to be snug. You don't want loosey-goosey, gapey corners. Yuck. You don't have to crank on the stitches afterwards. Just make sure that corner is tight. And you're just slip stitching across. We get to this one, we go in there, and then in there. And I'm going to pretend that I just joined 15 across my row and fasten off. So what I was going to say earlier was that I worked all the squares up in a row, and then I would join them to the previous row. So I just worked right across those rows, joining straight across. I think they're 15 across, right? So that's what I did. I worked up 15 of the grannies that I needed, and then I seamed them all together, and I did all of my rows. And then once all of my rows were joined, then I went up and down all of the columns. And so it makes it super easy. So we've gone across our row. Now we have to do our column. Okay, and show you how we do that. So this is how it looks on the back. Okay, so we're gonna fold it together so that their fronts are facing. Okay, we're going to join our hook into that second one here. Make sure I get the right one this time, right? Wouldn't that be something if I messed up twice? Same mistake. Would totally be my luck. Okay, so I've got my slip knot. I'm placing it on my hook here. Nothing different from the previous row. Exact same. So we're going to go here, here, into those back loops, just like before. Even though this one looks like the front loop, remember this is the back side of your granny square, right? So we're calling it the back loop. To clarify if that was confusing for someone. Okay, when we get to our corners, it can look a little messy, okay? So stick your thumb in there or your finger. Okay, I've got my finger right here, and I'm going to go into this one, okay? And then I'm going to go into this one. So take the time to make sure you're getting the right loop on your hook. Sometimes they can be really tight, so you might have to like really pull it apart to get a good look. So I'm going to go into that one. And I'm going to go into this one right here. Oops. Okay. Again, pull that corner tight. Now we've come across a knot. So this is where you joined your granny square, right? So we're going to look at this. We have our slip stitch right here. Let's assess the situation, because you have to make sure that you get all the right stitches or else you'll run out. So this was your slip stitch. This is your knot. Okay, this is a loop. This is a loop. Okay, you have to make sure that you get in either side of this knot, because you'll run out if you don't. You won't have enough stitches across your squares. Okay, and they can be tight, but it's worth it to wiggle your hook in there. Get it in there. Take your time, we're not in any rush. Okay. And I'm stuck. Okay, now we've come across a knot on this side. So let's see. We've got our knot right here. This is a loop. This is a loop. Okay. So I'm going to go in that loop. And go in this loop. And it's always easier when they're on this side. I don't know why that is. Pushing rather than pulling, I guess. Make sure you get that first stitch in your corner. It's going to be a little tight where the knots are, okay? And we've finished that. Okay, and you would sew those tails in. I actually wait and I put my border on before I sew them in, because then I can just put the tails in the border. So I am going to show you how I did the border. I'm just going to quickly throw it on. So I start in my corner, just like so, okay? And then I put a single crochet in each stitch along, okay? So I'm gonna go each stitch across the top of my square. When you get to the corner, one single crochet on that side, one single crochet on this side. Don't forget this stitch in here. This stitch right here, this guy gets forgotten often, okay? Let's make sure we put a stitch in there. When we get to our corners, 3 single crochets. This one is also a forgotten stitch, okay? Sometimes if you put 3 single crochets in here, it overlaps, and so people forget about this one. Don't forget about it. The reason I'm stressing those forgotten ones, or those hidden ones that sometimes gets a little crowded, because if you don't have enough stitches, your panels aren't going to line up when you seam them together, okay? Your panel 1 and your panel 2. So you want to make sure that you have all the right numbers of stitches. So I'm just making my way around. Again, when I came to this join here, I just did 1 single crochet in this corner and 1 single crochet in that corner. One single crochet, 1 single crochet. One, 2, 3. Now, this is a stitch, okay, where we have our knot here. So you can't really get your hook into there. So we're just going to put an extra single crochet over here and call it a day. Then I'm going to put my hook in here to get on the other side of that knot, right? So be aware of those knots. You want a stitch on either side. Here I've got another one, see? Another join where there was a knot, your chain 2. So I'm just going to throw in my extra single crochet there. And then on the other side, okay? One, 2, 3. And I'm going to join to the top of my single crochet over here. And fasten off. So there you have it. It's not looking very square right now, is it? So then I would go through and I would sew in all of my tails. So all I do is I thread my tail onto the hook and then put it back and forth a couple times on itself in the single crochet border. That's all. So there you have it. That's how you do a miniature panel. I hope you guys loved it and enjoy it and have fun making this pattern. Take care.